The U.S. Army helicopter, call sign Falcon 9, cut through lightning and darkness, carrying an elite Ranger unit. Their mission was clear: extract a captured intelligence officer before the enemy crossed into the valley. Among them was Lieutenant Sarah McKinley, one of the youngest female Rangers in her battalion, strong, composed, and with eyes that hid 1,000 silent prayers. She was known not for her strength alone, but for her calm under chaos. The mission had started well, until it didn't. A heat-seeking missile shot from the mountains tore through the tail rotor. The helicopter spun violently. Inside, chaos erupted, alarms blaring, soldiers shouting. The pilot screamed, "We're hit! We're going down!" Sarah unbuckled instantly, moving toward the open ramp to grab the emergency chute packs, but there weren't enough. Only 6 soldiers. No time. Then came the impossible order: drop weight. Drop anything not breathing. But Sarah saw the fire creeping fast, the controls fried. The pilot was trying to stabilize, but the bird was falling. Through the haze of smoke, enemy fire began lighting up the sky. Bullets cracked past the open ramp. And then, a grenade exploded near the tail. Sarah was thrown back, barely holding onto a strap. As the pilot shouted for them to jump, one of the men, panicked, shoved Sarah toward the ramp. "Go, we can't all die here," he yelled. She screamed, "There's no chute." But his hands didn't stop. In a split second, she was gone. Thrown into the roaring blackness. The air ripped the breath from her lungs. The world became a blur of cold and fear. The helicopter lights vanished above her, replaced by the haunting silence of freefall. She was falling, without a parachute, from 2,000 feet. But Sarah wasn't just any soldier. She was a Ranger, trained to adapt, improvise, survive. As she fell, her mind became steel. She twisted her body, flattened her form to slow the descent, searching desperately through the darkness below. Her night vision goggles flickered back to life for a brief second, and there it was, a frozen ridge with thick pine trees. It wasn't a landing, it was death waiting. Still, she aimed for it. She spread her arms, adjusting her fall angle. She'd been trained to use air resistance to steer midair, a technique every Ranger practices for halo jumps. Only this time, she had no chute. She crashed through the treetops, each branch breaking her fall, and her ribs. Her body hit the snow, rolling down the slope until she stopped against a fallen log. Silence. Her body screamed in agony. Her vision blurred. Blood filled her mouth. But when she opened her eyes again, the first thing she saw was the stars. And she whispered, through broken breath, "Rangers, lead the way." Hours later, enemy trucks arrived at the crash site. They were searching for survivors. The helicopter wreckage burned in the distance. From their chatter, Sarah realized, no one made it out. But she couldn't accept that. With 2 ribs broken, a dislocated shoulder, and frost creeping into her fingers, she started crawling through the snow toward the sound of the wreckage. Each inch felt like an eternity. Halfway there, she saw movement, a soldier, barely alive, pinned under the twisted frame of the helicopter. It was Sergeant Daniels. "Sarah," he gasped, blood pouring from his chest. "I thought you were gone." "So did I," she whispered. "But Rangers don't die that easy." She dragged herself next to him, pulling him free with her good arm. Every sound she made risked discovery, but she didn't care. She couldn't leave another Ranger behind. The night was long, the cold was merciless, and the enemy was close. When the sun began to rise, Sarah used what little energy she had left to build a makeshift signal fire, using parts from the wreckage. She tied a torn Ranger patch to a branch, her silent message to the sky: "We're still here." Hours turned into a day. No rescue. The enemy began sweeping the area. Sarah knew they'd be found soon. Daniels was fading fast. That's when she made a decision no one could have imagined. She took the radio transmitter from the wreck and reconnected it using a live battery and a broken antenna. It was a desperate move. If it worked, they'd get rescued. If it didn't, the signal would reveal their location. She pressed the button and said, "This is Lieutenant Sarah McKinley, U.S. Army Rangers. Falcon 9 downed. 2 survivors. Request immediate extraction at grid coordinates." Before she could finish, she heard engines, not American. Enemy trucks. They'd heard her transmission. She turned to Daniels. "They're coming. You stay here. I'll draw them off." Daniels weakly grabbed her hand. "You won't make it." She smiled faintly. "I already did." With her rifle loaded and pain burning in every bone, she limped into the forest. Snow crunched beneath her boots as gunfire erupted behind her. The first shot grazed her arm. She fell, rolled, and returned fire, dropping 2 men. The third charged at her. She swung the rifle like a club. The forest echoed with rage, gunfire, and the screams of survival. She was outnumbered, outgunned, but not out of fight. When a bullet hit her side, she stumbled into the snow, gasping, and then, above the treetops, she heard it. A distant thundering. Helicopters. American ones. Her signal had reached them. The forest exploded in light as Rangers rappelled down. Within seconds, the enemy fled. Sarah, bleeding and barely conscious, managed a weak salute as they surrounded her. "Lieutenant McKinley," one shouted. She nodded faintly. "You did good, ma'am. We got you." As they lifted her onto the stretcher, she whispered, "I didn't survive because I'm lucky. I survived because Rangers never fall alone." 3 months later, at a military ceremony in Arlington, Sarah McKinley stood tall in her dress uniform. Her ribs had healed. The scar on her side still ached when she breathed deeply, but her spirit was unbroken. The president himself pinned the silver star on her chest. "For bravery under fire," he said, "and for proving that true warriors don't fall, they rise." The crowd rose to their feet. Veterans saluted. Families wept. Sarah looked out over the sea of faces and saw Daniels, now walking with a cane, smiling at her from the front row. When she stepped down, reporters asked her, "Lieutenant, how did you survive that fall without a parachute?" She smiled softly and replied, "When you're a ranger, your heart is your parachute. It never lets you hit the ground. So, if you ever find yourself falling, in life, in fear, in despair, remember Sarah McKinley's story. Because real heroes don't wait for perfect chances. They fight, they fall, they rise again. And sometimes, they remind the world that courage doesn't need wings to fly."